Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. We will get started here in about 30 seconds to let everybody get settled. Thanks so much. Hello, everyone, and thanks so much. And let's go on ahead and get started. Welcome to our OETG webinar, Interdisciplinary Insights Exploring Careers in Occupational Ergonomics. This is part one of a three-part series. Before we begin, I wanted to offer some brief announcements to let all of our attendees know that this is a Zoom webinar. You will be able to see our panelists, but they cannot see you. If you want to submit any questions during the webinar for our panelists, please use the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen to submit questions anytime. Our moderators will be answering questions as they come in, as well as taking questions at the end. I also wanted to remind you that we have real-time captioning available for today's session. In order to use this feature, you just choose the closed caption or live transcript option in your Zoom toolbar. Thank you again for joining us, and I'm going to pass it on to our moderators, Ahmad Raza Usmani and Harrison Sims, to get us started. Ahmad and Harrison?
Thank you so much, Stephanie. Is my audio right? All right. Thank you so much, Stephanie, for the introduction. So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. All thanks to the panelists who are here and also to all the invitees, because I think if you won't be here, the webinar wouldn't be there. So I think today's webinar is designed for really simple reasons for the students and even the people who have already started their career. A lot of time we have questions about different career paths, but oftentimes we do not have people who can actually tell and reflect on how it looks from the other side of the spectrum. So that's why we have amazing panelists today, which is a really good mixture of, we have people from academia, we have people from the industry, we have people working in healthcare, we have people working in the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, and we have people who are running their own consultancies. So I'll go ahead and I'll open the floor for the panelists to introduce themselves. And just one quick thing for all the attendees is that we really want this to be a very open floor for the questions, to an extent that we don't even have a script to follow for the webinar. So the more questions you ask, the better it kind of shapes the webinar. So who wants to go first for the introductions?
I'll go first. My name is Tom Rowell. I'm an independent ergonomics consultant. I've got my educational background as both a bachelor's and a master's in industrial and systems engineering from Texas A&M. I'm a board certified professional ergonomist. I got certified in 1995. There may be people on that are attending today that weren't even alive. So I've been doing this a long time, 35 years. And as an independent consultant, I get the opportunity to travel around this great country and see all kinds of amazing things and meet lots of cool people and see how companies are doing things and try to contribute to making it better for them. With that, I'll pass it on to the next. Anybody.
Thanks, Tom. I'll introduce myself next. My name is Mark Dahl. I'm a full professor at Auburn University in Industrial and Systems Engineering, where I'm also Associate Chair and direct our Center for Occupational Safety, Ergonomics, and Injury Prevention. I got my degree, PhD, in 2014 from the University of Iowa. Background, done a lot of different things over the course of my career, but primarily work in physical ergonomics and wearable technology. So yeah, I'll turn it over. Chris, would you like to go next?
Oh, it's named that panelist, huh? Thanks, Mark. Chris Reed, I'm a senior tech fellow for the Boeing Company. My educational background is from University of Central Florida. I did electrical engineering for my undergrad, and then a master's and a PhD in industrial engineering with a focus in human factors and ergonomics. I primarily have been in aerospace throughout my career and military, but then I primarily focus in human factors and physical ergo as well, similar to Mark.
You can go
So
next.
go for it.
Awesome. My name is Sophia Ullman. My undergrad, I'm a little different. So my undergrad was in biomedical engineering from Duke, and then I got my master's and PhD in industrial and systems engineering, focusing on biomechanics. I am now in the healthcare space, so I run a motion capture biomechanics lab within a hospital setting, a pediatric orthopedic hospital. So predominantly doing sports medicine and biomechanics research. If you know anything about youth sports right now, you could call it occupational biomechanics, given a lot of these kids, the sport is their job. So I'm excited to be here from a different perspective. Thanks for the invite.
Okay, so I'll go next. So my name's Camille Paris, and my education background is really different. And my undergraduate degree is actually in theater. I was a stage manager or was training to be a stage manager, and that's actually where I fell in love with technology, was in the control room and the booth backstage. And that's where I first saw all the things that technology could do. And so that's my undergraduate degree back in 1990, and then took several life path turns and ended up getting a master's degree and then another master's degree, my PhD from Rice University, and finished those in 2005. And that was primarily in human computer interaction. And so at that point, I went straight to a faculty program at the University of Houston Clear Lake, and did research in a lot of domains, and initially was looking at efficiency and how to identify that and efficient techniques. But very quickly started doing work in human factors and high risk industrial settings, which, if you know anything about Houston, Texas, there's a lot of high risk industrial settings in Houston, Texas. And so that then really became the domain that I have hung my hat on. A lot of work in procedural issues and how do we integrate human factors into improving the procedural systems. And so that is sort of my history. In the last year, almost 2 years, I've been with the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, and so been transitioning my understanding of human factors and ergonomics from a research perspective, and then also from petrochemical, electrical grid management, offshore oil and gas, to this other domain, complex domain, and then from the regulator's perspective, which is a very different world if none of you have experienced it. And then a whole brave new world in my mid-career. So that's been terribly exciting. And one of the other things I'm doing right now as well is leading this amazing society of ours called HFES. So I want to share right now, I've been told I can go ahead and put in a plug for our HFES annual meeting, which is coming up in October. And so this is the website for that. And Sophia, can you give me a thumbs up if we're seeing that? Or everybody give me a thumbs up if we're seeing that. Thank you. And so this is the Aspire website. And so you can see that this is, we've got our little running man here. Or running person, excuse me, that I just love. I love them. And so you can see that we've got a lot of different things that we're doing here, and a lot of special events that are going on that are very, very new, and obviously images aren't downloading very quickly right here, or very well right now. But a couple of things I want to highlight to you. One is we have several different special symposium. ErgoX is back. We have a UX mini conference that's 2 days. We have another mini conference that is creating AI that works for people. And these are events that are in addition to the regular conference. And we also have our workshops that are available as well. And I highly recommend you look at those. We need to make sure that people look at those now, because if people look at them too late and we don't get the numbers for them, then we won't be able to actually be able to keep them. We've got some really big names who are giving these workshops. So they're very special opportunities. So, and this is the first time we've ever had the opportunity to have the BCPE ergonomics certification process and review actually available at the meeting. So I would really encourage people to take advantage of that if you're interested in getting your certification. I am a certified human factors professional, and I have found that being able to say that I have that certification, studying for the test it was definitely something that I'm pretty proud of and that I've done, and that I've been able to qualify and clearly indicate that I have that sort of status. And so now I will stop sharing so that we can get back to the regularly scheduled program. That's me.
Thank you so much to everyone, first for taking out time from your busy schedules and for giving amazing introduction. And honestly, what I'm loving about this panel is how diverse backgrounds are kind of coming together, you know, everything from theater to industrial engineering to maybe someone's background I was seeing was in mechanical. So it's really great. Interestingly enough, we had the first question in our chat from Stanislaus Oshimeja, who's a master's student in cognitive science and human factors. Excuse me. So I'll just rephrase the question a little bit and I'll open the floor for the thoughts of our amazing panelists. And so it's actually a very interesting question. Stanislaus has mentioned that when he so I'll just quote him. When I attend job fairs, I often meet employers who are not familiar with my field or what my career path involves. It can feel discouraging at times because I know the value of human factors and cognitive science, but it isn't very clear to others. I wonder, did you face similar challenges early in your career where people didn't fully understand your field or expertise? And if so, how did you navigate those moments? And I can definitely, like, just to add on top of it, I think personally, even I have felt that, because obviously if someone starts speaking about engines, IC engines, everyone knows about it. But when we are asked, especially from the perspective of the main fields, if someone is mechanical or electrical or computer science, oftentimes like you have to give a little bit of an explanation of what this field is about. So I will leave the floor open. Who wants to go first? And then we can just
I'll make a comment right out of the gate. I think all of us have experienced that, and not just in early career, but even middle of career and late career. As a late career professional, it doesn't matter where I go, you still get to explain what is ergonomics. And not only that, what is ergonomics and human factors? People look at you when you mention it, and they think of a product that they saw that might have had ergonomics in the marketing material. So yeah, it's not something that's going to go away. And what I would suggest to anybody that is, especially in early career, is that you come up with your 20 or 30-second elevator pitch and get really good at it. Something that rolls right off your tongue and is compelling about how you improve the world for the people around you, and how it pays dividends to the companies that hire you. So get really good at speaking that quick little elevator pitch and explain to the people out there what you do.
I'd love to follow up on that. I experienced this actually in my first interview out of my PhD program at Virginia Tech, which was a industrial and systems engineering department. And my interview was in a hospital setting with surgeons and leadership that is used to interviewing biomedical engineering people. And so I really focused on what I did. So I got rid of the terms that I knew they were not familiar with, because I can just see it in their face. They're getting frustrated, and they immediately think you're not the right fit, and I have to explain to them, no, I actually do exactly what you're looking for. They just have different words and different fields. So my advice usually to students that are coming out of a department that doesn't necessarily match what the job description says is I just say it in layman terms what you do. You analyze body movement, or you are evaluating an environment, and relate it to the job itself and relate it to the employer, because it's your job to translate it. It's not their job to read between the lines. So you don't have to always talk so technically, I don't think.
Excellent comment. Chris, you want to add something?
Yeah, real quick, Ahmad, I can follow up from the other side of the table, having established jobs and created opportunities in companies. You know, one of the things you can do to look for opportunities is to get real keen at scanning for keywords. So things like biomechanics, ergonomics, human factors, human engineering, working the different job boards, and basically trying to spend less time generically talking to companies for, hey, do you have a human factors job? And more looking in the job boards that likely have the human factors job. So like a great example is HFES has the career board where we post jobs specific to our field. And so that helps narrow it down. And then, you know, tailoring resumes, prepping for interviews, that's a whole nother set of questions, but they're all related. So hopefully that helps a little bit. I've been in those shoes, so I can definitely understand.
Yeah, I'm going to follow on to that and say, my first thought when I read the question was, welcome to human factors and ergonomics, because you know you're an HFE person when you're feeling that. And Tom is right on the money, is that you need to, this is never going to stop. This is constant. And so I think the first thing to keep in mind is it completely depends on what kind of job you're looking for. Are you wanting to go into academia? Are you wanting to go into industry? Are you wanting to do something in between? Are you geographically bound, or can you go anywhere? Do you have some sort of, are you really wanting to stay in medicine, or are you wanting to do any kind of thing? So those are really important to keep in mind. When I first got out of graduate school, I was geographically bound. I was going to be in the Houston area, and I had a psychology degree. So I could teach research and stats. I could teach cognitive psychology. I could teach. So I got myself into a psychology program. And so then what I started doing is I started showing them why they needed an applied cognitive program, because I needed those students that were interested in that. So then it becomes, so you hear kind of what I'm saying. It depends on where you want to be, what you want to be doing. So if you can get yourself in there, or if you can be, this is the place I want to work. I want to work at this company. So then you've got to do a bit of a sales job about why they need you. Show them why they need your skill sets. But it's what everybody has said. It's knowing what is it that you do and the value that you do, and how does what you do bring value to them. And it doesn't matter that you know that it's wonderful. They have to know that it's wonderful. And what Chris was saying is dead on too. The whole Chat GPT, all of these large language models are your friend with regard to your resume and building your letters and all of that sort of stuff. So that's another tool as well.
I'm just going to chime in real quick and say, I think Camille gave a really good summary of kind of what was just said by everybody. And I would just add to it, you know, part of it is listening to, you know, either who's hiring or who the customer is, and thinking about, okay, I mean, I might know what I do, but how can I listen to what they're telling me and then reframe it so that I'm speaking their language? And so I think listening is a big part of it.
All right, thank you so much, everyone. Actually, it was way too interesting for me as well. And I really like the perspective of how you guys mentioned that instead of telling what you did, you should kind of turn it on the other side, that how it can be helpful to them. So that's great. And following up to what Chris has mentioned, Camille has also mentioned, that's another question, bringing in the AI. So one of our attendees, Muhammad Sadra Rajabi, as that considering today's economic challenges and the influence of AI, are occupational ergonomics related positions in your companies or in your positions being affected by the layoffs? And if so, to what extent? And I'll just add on to this question that what skills do you think, or maybe some additional like building some additional skills that can kind of put them to a safer zone, if that's, if there is something like that which exists?
All right, who wants to take a stab at that one first? So I'll say frankly,
Go ahead, Tom, and I can follow up.
From the standpoint of a consultant, and obviously I don't have a raft of employees that are going to get laid off by advances in AI, but it is a real conversation amongst the consultants out there. Are we with the advances in, let's say, the markerless motion capture evaluation tools that are starting to become readily available, and marketing companies are just absolutely blasting it as being the next best thing, so you no longer need an ergonomist. Well, I mean, I think those of us on the panel know that's not the case. We're not ready to be replaced yet, and I don't think we're at risk of being replaced yet. Maybe at some point when the large language models get big enough, they'll be able to do what we do, but there still is a very human element of what we do. And from the standpoint of human factors and ergonomics, we are literally a systems-based approach at problem solving. And the AI models that are being, starting to come out on the market, they're not able to look upstream and downstream in the process and see what we're able to see. So I think that at least for the near term, there is a real place for us to remain relevant and active and value add to the equation. There's still a lot of growth left to be had before they take us out. Chris?
Yeah, well said, Tom. I think the gap that AI can't fill as yet is the human centric opportunities. So things like empathy and being able to have emotional intelligence and being able to tactfully speak to others and fill in those gaps. So from my perspective, we're not laying people off for artificial intelligence in the human factors and ergonomics field. In fact, we're looking for advocates that can help map the AI human space. So having the experience of both human factors and ergonomics and artificial intelligence to help bridge those gap in AI, better AI interfaces or autonomous interfaces, that's a highly skilled area right now. That's an emergent area. Beyond that, I think I kind of wrapped it up. It's coming back to right now, ergonomists need to be able to utilize AI to help them do their job more effectively, efficiently, depending on how you want to map it. You may be diverse geographically, and you could use artificial intelligence to help sum and batch process lots of information. That's just one means of doing it. It's not replacing people at this point in time, as Tom said.
So one of the things that I'm seeing is, and this is not explicitly, we all know that, human factors and ergonomics is a lot of things. And I know that we're here in the occupational ergonomics, but the whole bifurcation has been really not correct for a long time. But what we're seeing what I'm seeing in the nuclear world is that actually AI is creating a lot of jobs. Because there's been this huge push for we need more power, we need more energy. So there's this huge demand and excitement around nuclear power. So there's a lot of jobs out there for human factors folks because it's a regulatory requirement to have the human factors, the Chapter 18, blah, blah, blah. And so I think one of the things to think about is looking a little more deeply at what's going on with AI. So if the AI is creating the robots that are running around, the airports and doing things, well, what job is that creating? Why, how high should the robot be so that people don't actually run into it? Who's going to decide that? And so looking at it from that vantage point of what job is actually being created by these things, and how can you fill that job? And who is hiring those people? And do they know they need to hire you? And if not, then tell them. And or tell one of us that knows those companies. Chris knows a lot of people in a lot of companies. And so that's the kind of thing that actually HFES can do for you. Coming to the annual meeting can actually do for you and say, hey, I had this thought about couldn't this be creating a job? And those kinds of things can happen. But I think that is where we are going to best serve ourselves, is when we are look at these jobs that are getting created because of the AI that's being implemented.
All right, thank you so much. Mark and Sophia, do you want to add anything on that before we move on to the next question?
I don't have anything to add. I agree with what everyone said. From the healthcare perspective, we have to be hands-on and in person with patients. So we're not concerned.
All right.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, so the next question, I think one of my favorite questions in almost all the similar kind of panels that I've been to. Zainab Kazemi asks, and I'll rephrase her question a little bit just so it's like more broad. So as we have like panelists from different career paths, someone in academia, healthcare, and different parts. So what advice would you give for those who are transitioning? Zainab's question was particularly from academia to industry, but I would also like to hear your thoughts about this transitioning across different career paths. Like, what advice would you guys have? And who wants to go first?
I designate Camille as tribute.
Well, I have a little bit of immediate experience with that. I think the biggest issue with that is why. Why are you doing it? It is a very it sounds like it's, career advice, and that's this generic career advice, like, should I go into academia or should I go into industry, or these other things that we're talking about. But everybody that I know that has transitioned either from industry to academia, or the other way around, it's for very personal reasons. And it is a very and it's usually not some sort of oh, well, this might be interesting kind of thing. And so I think that that's the first piece of it, is that to know very clearly why you're doing it, and do a lot of soul searching about the pros and the cons, and then to do that whole stupid list thing of the pros and cons of staying, the pros and cons of going, and be very clear about that, and not be running from one, and but clearly making a decision, because they're very different worlds, and there's good and bad in both. And there's things I miss about academia a lot. There's things I absolutely do not miss one little bit. I don't miss grading. Oh my gosh, I don't miss grading. I miss mentoring my students. I miss it a lot. And so I don't miss spending, months on a grant, that not knowing whether or not I'm actually going to get it. I don't miss that one bit. So things like that. And then there's things about being in industry that I, not in, being a practitioner, that I really love. I really love listening to these people talking about this new technology. I mean, that they're just thinking about right now. It is on the table to plan. and being at that forefront of something that the entire country is talking about. That is cool. That is really, really cool. I don't like being so limited in what I can do about it. I can't just say, well, I think I'm going to do this. I'm going to write this project and get my little group together and just do whatever I want. Because as an academic, you're your own little, small business unit. You can pretty much, if you can pay for it, you can do it within reason. And so, it's all pros and cons. So that's what I think about that question. It's just a tough one to do. It depends on when you do it in life. I've got more of my career behind me than I do ahead of me. And I was late to the game. I was almost 40 when I started as a faculty. And so it's a personal thing. And so I think that's probably not a very satisfying answer. But I think that honestly, that's the truth. And anybody who tells you, here's what it is, here's what it means, here's why it's good, here's why it's bad, I wouldn't agree with those kind of categorical statements personally.
Yeah, definitely agree with know your why. When I transitioned from a manufacturing operations management position into consulting, I very clearly knew my why. And in my case, my why was I was tired of somebody else having decisions over me. And I made when I stepped out of that position in manufacturing, rattling in my head was, if there's going to be a bad decision made, I want it to be my own. I don't want the bad decision to be made by somebody who controls my paycheck. And I had just absolutely had enough of decisions above me that impacted me, impacted my family, or impacted my ability to really do a good job at being an operations manager. So that was my decision, and that's what transitioned me out of private industry and into back into consulting. And I know that one of the seed questions that we had written was, how does that relate to your work-life balance? And when you're completely owned by an organization that tells you when you're going to show up and if you're going to come home on time, I mean, that has got a tremendous impact on your work-life balance. And I know as an independent consultant, I get to take a look at literally, do I want to work this week? And if the answer is no, I'm blocking off the calendar and I'm going to go do something with my wife. Now, there's a lot of plus and minus to that. The minus is you decide to block off the entire week. There's no income. There's no PTO for an independent consultant. You get to live off whatever's in your checking account, because nobody's giving you paid time off. But that's okay. I was okay with that. So there is a lot of opportunity in that freedom. Now, it's not for everybody. I know I've had conversation with a lot of people that have come and said, "Hey, I want to do this," and it's like, you've got to be really sure you want to do this, because every decision that affects your wallet, your checking account is totally up to you. Yeah.
I'd love to follow up, just because I have a little bit different of an answer. So I've heard this question a lot, especially from some of my students, because I get undergrad and PhD students in my lab. And I hate when it feels so binary, because then it feels like this end of life question and everything is relying on the right answer. And, the rest of your life depends on one way or the other. And I really don't think it's as binary as it is. Unfortunately, when you're a student and when you're in that situation, it feels very binary. But now that I've had an opportunity to look back on my career path, it is so not. So my experience has been a little bit of a choose your own adventure. I wouldn't say I'm in academia. I work in a hospital setting. I don't work for a university, but we do research here. And so, like Camille mentioned, those grants that, your whole heart is, up in the air for 6-9 months, I do that for fun. It is an awful experience, but it's not required as part of my job, but I have the opportunity to apply to grants. I have the opportunity to take student interns. So it's different, but I still get mentoring. I do teach also at a medical school down the street, UT Southwestern, for fun. Again, it's just adding things on. But the example I'm trying to say is I've hodgepodged this job. I've taken the things that are traditionally academia that I enjoy and hodgepodged it to what some would call an industry job. It's not, a regulator or a consultant. It's not true industry, but it's not academia either. It's been hodgepodged into different things that I like that are kind of in both realms. I get to consult for some small companies creating wearables. I also have sat on different advisory boards when talking about different policy changes that directly affect youth athletes. So I wouldn't say it's so binary. I know it feels that way, and I know you probably hate to hear you'll be fine. But you really will. It's not as dire as it seems, and you can always hodgepodge or create your own journey.
I'm just going to echo that, and I won't talk, but that's the point. That's what we're all doing. We're all putting it all together. We're all just figuring out our path as we go along. And you're right. There's absolutely nothing binary about it. And you will be fine. That first job is your first job. It's not your only job. I think that's a great point, Sophia.
Yeah, I can attest to what Sophia was saying. You basically own your career, as Camille was saying, and you forge your path to make it individual to you and unique to you. I think one thing I'll add from the industry standpoint is something Tom alluded to is the dynamism or how dynamic the workspace is. One moment you're doing something that's topic X, that's important to the company, and then things suddenly change, leadership changes, situations change, and funding changes, and all that is pulled out from underneath you, and all of a sudden you have to work on topic B. So you have to have that flexibility in industry, because ultimately the bottom line of the company is, if it's a nonprofit or if it's a profit, is to meet whatever the company was formed for. And then from that perspective, you can forge a path within that company. And this is where, at least for me, it's been absolutely incredible. It's been go from doing your own research, maybe building your own lab, building your own opportunities in your research field, to more of a shifting into an advocacy role where now you're creating opportunities for others to do research and bring in new employees, breaking in new research areas. So depending on where you go in your career, you can go from being the individual player, I like to say, going from being Superman to, hiring the Justice League. It's a different role that you play depending on how you forge your path. So just want to put that out there. It's not industry specific what I'm saying, but I will say you have to be pliable in industry.
Anyone wants to add anything before I move to the next question that we got from our attendees? All right, so the next question is a very specific question, and they want to know that, are there any form of certifications that you would recommend to help one become more visible to the employers? So maybe Chris, you want to go first in that, considering you're particularly in an industrial role?
So when I came in, I started in a very niche area. I was a human factors engineer for the U.S. Army, basically doing research in personal protective equipment. And I will leave it to you to imagine what that could be. And so from that perspective, there wasn't really a certification for doing very specialized research. Um, you could do a CPE, going through the Board of Certified Professional Ergonomists, BCPE, like Camille had mentioned earlier. But when you get into extremely niche areas, like dealing with space, which was one of my other jobs, working for Lockheed Martin, for NASA Johnson Space Center, working in spacesuits, Is there a certification for that? Maybe if you're dealing with the equipment space, but not as a human factors ergonomics professional working on spacesuits. So it's different when you're getting into very niche areas. However, if you're doing things like what Tom is doing, where he's sitting there advising companies in roles and decisions that they can make in ergonomics and helping improve ergonomics bottom line for companies, that's different. I think Tom can talk more specifically to that, but I see that the certifications come in very handy for those aspects.
Yeah, and what I'll say to the attendees, you know, and I don't know, because we haven't really kind of surveyed them, how many of our attendees are students, how many are early career. But what I'll say for the students and the early career professionals, as soon as you're done with this webinar, go out and hit up bcpe.org and take a look at the associate level, the AEP or the AHFP. Sorry, it's late in the day. And take a look at the requirements. The requirements for the AEP and the AHFP are pretty simple. You meet the educational requirements, you fill out an application, you submit, and you get granted the associate. And what the associate does for you, it puts you in the pathway to full board certification, whether that's CHFP or CPE. And there's a time period for transition. I will say this as long as nobody holds me to it and quotes me. That time period for transition is not harshly enforced. So they're looking for 3 years worth of industry experience before you transition from AEP to full certified CPE. If you don't make it in that period, they're not going to kick you out onto the street. But I would really encourage those that are, looking for a way to distinguish themselves, looking for a way to put a couple of letters behind your name, go check out bcp.org and look at the associate level certification and get into that pathway for your full professional certification.
And I'll add in here. So I have my CPE myself. Another certification that I do not have, but we do recommend that a lot of our students pursue, and I know a lot of professionals value, is the CSP by the Board of Certified Safety Professionals. So that gives you another potential option, and I'm sure there's others that some others might have.
Yep.
Here's the thing I would say about it is that, yeah, there's a lot of things you can do to get a lot of letters behind your name. And some of them really matter when somebody's deciding whether to hire you as a consultant or as an employee. Like what Chris was mentioning about what Tom does, he's dead on. If you're doing the kind of stuff that Tom does and you hire somebody who doesn't have a CPE, then you're a fool. Other ones, it's not as critical. But here's the thing is, so when I, decided I was going to get a CPE, thank you again, Mark Benden, for supporting me with that. I had a PhD. I had been teaching human factors and ergonomics for, blank number of years. I studied my butt off for that test. And I know that content better now than I did before. And so I'm a better person. I'm, as far as knowledgeable, my depth and breadth a little bit than I was before that. And so you can look at it as how much is this going to, improve my fill in the blank, or you can look at it as these opportunities to actually improve who you are as a professional. And one of the things that I've really experienced is coming out of academia that I do miss is that as a faculty member and teaching something, I touched content every semester, and I was advising students on content every semester. So when I had a thesis or a dissertation, those students had to teach me this stuff that I didn't necessarily know. I didn't necessarily take that, maybe had a survey class on it. And all of a sudden I had the student doing a dissertation on a topic that I barely knew anything about it. Well, guess what? 4 years later, I know a heck of a lot more about it. And so just by doing my job, I was learning more about human factors and ergonomics than I would have if I weren't in academia. And so I think if you're not in academia and you're not, once you graduate, you don't have all these opportunities to touch all of this stuff and to learn all of this stuff. Maybe you don't get to go to conferences every year. Maybe you don't have the opportunity. And even when you do, you're not going to spend 4 years learning one topic. And so I would say every chance you get to make your knowledge of what your profession is deeper or broader, you should take it. If somebody's paying for it, you should do it. And that has been my experience with these things.
Camille, just add a point about the requirements for your CPE or your CHFP. There is a 5-year continuance of certification for BCPE. So to your point, staying current with new technology, the things that are coming on board, as a board certified human factors professional or board certified professional ergonomist, you have to stay up on what's going on. You have to submit your continuance of certification points every 5 years. Or if you don't, your certification is going to get pulled. So it forces you to attend webinars, attend conferences, give presentations, write papers, all of those things that earn you points. So for those, to Camille's point, stay up on your profession, stay relevant in your profession, and going down the path of BCPE is really going to be one mechanism to help push you in that direction, because you have to keep your points. And, Mark would probably say the same thing about the CSP. You're going to have to keep your points because you have to submit your CSP points, I believe, on a 5-year basis as well. So either way, whether you live in the safety world, the human factors world, the ergo world, pick one of those that suits where you're going to go, and that will help nudge you down that path of staying current and staying relevant.
Excellent point. Thank you so much, everyone. Before I proceed to the next question, Sophie, is there any certification that you would recommend, particularly for healthcare? Because we see a lot of people now choosing this career path as well.
So none that are specific to my field that come to mind. The only thing I would add is going back to the AI conversation. There are different certifications courses that I know people are taking, data science, data analysis courses, and that, at least in my field, makes a candidate stand out for sure, if you can use these new technologies to apply it to our field. But no specific certifications, no.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So now we're a little, I think, 12 minutes away from our time. I had actually a question on collaboration, because I think as any other field, ergonomics also relies on the collaboration with people like ranging from all the way from healthcare providers, managers, floor workers, everything, and even the policy makers and others. So as people who have spent like good amount of time in different career paths, be it in academia or industry or healthcare, what advice would you give students or even the early career professionals for building effective collaborations and networks? Who wants to go first?
Yeah, I can.
When I read that question, with the moderator seed questions, the thing that came to my mind is, and it's an old saying to, seek first to understand, then seek to be understood. So when you're out and collaborating with, whether it's engineering, HR, operations, maintenance, floor workers, is use your ears and your mouth in that proportion. You got 2 ears. Listen twice as hard before you open your mouth and try to interject your opinion, because from my perspective in consulting, I'm going to get the most from the line workers and the maintenance people. Right. That doesn't mean I'm not going to get a lot from engineering and operations. I am, but when I go out, I don't formulate opinions and solutions until I've stood there with people and let them tell me everything that they want to tell me, and open up the Open it up to the broad gamut of, spill your guts. I want to see the worst dirt that you've got. And that does, it opens up that collaborative nature and, lets you see into their world. And if we look at our job in human factors and ergonomics, it's that, systems-based approach of making the workplace better for the worker, making the workplace fit the worker, not the other way around. We're looking for improvements for the operator as well as improvements for the operation, right? So we've got to understand the system in order to do that. So go out there and listen. Listen with 2 ears.
I'd love to add on to that because I was recently told a term. So I agree with everything Tom said. Listen, but I would add on to that to also observe behaviors, observe environment. I used to say know the lingo, and a student recently told me to catch the vibe or pick up on the vibe. I'm trying to understand what that means. Just in my area, we work with athletic trainers who are very cool on the sidelines, physical therapists, care about the science. They want you to over-explain things. Surgeons don't want you to say more than 3 words if you don't have to. And all of them are so different, but I see them and talk to them on a daily basis. And I think why it's so important you understand a person's vibe or lingo is because they can very quickly get frustrated if you're not speaking to them in a way they're familiar with. So when you're networking and when you're early career and you're getting into certain environments and you're meeting with engineers. I have 2 engineers on my team that are very technical. I also have biomechanists on my team that are very clinical. Understand how they like to communicate. And the quicker you can learn the vibe or the lingo, I think the easier people like to talk with you and collaborate with you. Because if they don't feel relatable, it can kill a collaboration pretty quickly. So.
I think what we're quickly learning here is that human to human interaction is highly important. We're taught very well how to do the technical side of the house, how to analyze how a human behaves in a certain environment and how they interact with that environment or that workspace in a physical as well as a mental perspective. But then, to everyone's point so far, hey, the human-human collaboration comes in handy every so often, right? And in order to do that, you got to learn social tact. It comes back to soft skills. I spend a lot of time in my job lately. I like to joke. I say essentially, look, I'm a master Jedi running around looking for Padawans. My job is to seek out the spark and really pull that and elicit that out of people and turn them into future leaders. And so because of that, you have to build that social tact, that ability to elicit information out of people, turn you might see leadership trends in individuals, be able to pull that out and hone it and coach it, because those future leaders are the ones who are going to be helping run companies, whisper in the ear of company leaders, as well as moving industry, government, academia, and other places. So it's not just about building technical hard skill, it's also about building social skill and soft skill, because that's going to help forge not only your career, but the career of others.
So I'll briefly add a couple of things. So there's the phrase, effective collaborations and networks there's a lot of different kinds. So there's kinds that, Sophia was talking about here and Tom, that are really about doing the work itself, being able to collaborate with the people that you're wanting to do this very functional day-to-day not day-to-day, but this immediate thing with. Then there are the collaborations that are like these colleagues that my colleagues here that I'm on the call with, and the people that I wrote grants with or things like that. So there's a different set of people to think of, different sets of people. And so when I'm working with people and wanting to get that information from them, there's one Camille that is a little bit different than maybe you might see in another world. And versus the one that I'm going to be working for the next 3 years with this person on this grant or whatever. And the one piece of advice that I give people about, you know, the collaborations and the networking with that group that you're going to be working with for the next 3 or 4 years is don't work with assholes. And just don't. It's not worth it. I don't care how important they are. I don't care how much grant money they have. If you're going to be working with them for more than 2 or 3 years, it's too much time. It's too much energy. It's too much. And I remember the first time somebody told me that. Of course, it was a woman. Sorry, but it's true. And I just thought, oh, that's ridiculous. That's too much. I was, you know, new. Sure enough, I thought, you know what, she was right. It is not worth it. And so it's just something to keep in mind. What are your parameters as far as what you want to put up with, and what's important to you? I like to work with people who make me laugh and that I have fun with and that I'm going to go to work with every day. If I have a choice, sometimes I don't have a choice, but if I do, I want to work with people that I really enjoy and that I really get excited about, and really dynamic thinking and really a lot of energy. It's one of the reasons I love going to HFES, because I'm just going around having all of these conversations with all of these exciting, brilliant, dynamic, funny people. And so those are, it's not the technical stuff, it's not any of that stuff, but it's the life stuff. You know, how do I want to spend the rest of my life? And so anyway, for whatever that's worth.
I think
Mark,
that,
go ahead, Tom.
I think it's funny, Camille, because there's a billing factor in there when that comes to mind. If I have that initial meeting with you and you're that way, guess what? Hourly rate just went up.
Mark, do you want to add anything on that?
I think it's just a very, I don't know, appropriate point that y'all bring out. I mean, I've had that conversation quite a bit with some of my colleagues about, you know, at the end of the day, you got to find the people that you want to spend your time working with. And I agree with you, Camille. I think it's a question of, you know, it's bigger than the job, right? It's part of your life. This is time that you're spending that you don't get back. So find the people you want to spend it with and work hard and solve fun problems, and, you know, it'll all be worth it in the end. So.
All right, that brings us to 4:58 p.m. in my time zone. Thank you so much to all the panelists who actually took their times out of their busy schedules for sharing their insights, and all of the attendees for joining today's discussion. And if you're also interested in learning more about the webinar series that we're having, feel free to visit our LinkedIn page. We'll be having 2 more webinars. One for the academia, like where we are having a panel from academia, and the other where we're having a panel from the industry. So thank you so much. We look forward to seeing you in the future events, especially for the Aspire 2025. Thank you so much, everyone, and have a great rest of your week.